Blog Talk Radio.
Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, holy angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Thank you for joining me tonight on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I am your hostess tonight. The music you were just listening to, that is called I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shemshai, and they're a band that I actually met when I was in Arizona, and I was going in and out of the Sedona area, and they were there. They were connected with some people I knew, and so I had that pleasure of getting to know them, and now, of course, they're just traveling all over the world sharing their music. I want to welcome everybody for joining me tonight and staying on a little bit later than normal. Ordinarily, we're running about 2 hours earlier than we are tonight, but we had a little bit of delays with our guest coming on tonight. She's kind of like I was a couple of weeks ago. She was caught up with some flight issues, and if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I kind of raced in and in like 1 hour set everything up and got ready and did the show after traveling for multiple hours. So I understand how that goes. She's going to be joining us. We have Sharón Lynn Wyeth on tonight. Absolutely exciting work. And here on in my work with Activating Compassion, what I do is I focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. I created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which some of you have experienced on previous shows. And if you haven't experienced that yet, you can go back into our archives and find those. Matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago when I was doing a show where we were doing intuitive coaching work on the show, and it was the first show of the year, and we worked with the Genesis Clearing Statement there. I've also authored 2 books titled Activating Compassion and Activating Compassion, the Workbook. And in addition to that, I created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. So a lot of different things that I do with that. I'm working on creating the 2013 tour, and I have had people asking me, when are you coming to the West Coast? When are you coming into Arizona? I am working on those dates, so as soon as I know, you're going to know, and the place that you can follow it and stay up on it and find out when the events are being posted and what's available to register for. You can get to that information at jessieannnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com. And a lot of these links that I mentioned, you'll see them at the bottom of the show description as well, so that makes it easy to get to. And there's also an option there for gifting the tours. So those people, if maybe you can't attend one of the events that are going on, but you still want to support the work I'm doing, like getting out to the fundraising events, then you can choose that option of gifting the tour and provide any amount of money that you choose to do. And here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at different ways that we're using compassion in our life, how it exists in our lives, how to remove blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. Some weeks I'm discussing different aspects of how compassion is in and affects our life and the different areas of compassion. And then some weeks I'm doing more like exercises and the practical implementations. And then a lot of times I have guests on the show, and I've got a lot of great guests lined up over the next few months here. So that's going to be really exciting. And what I'd like to do is to bring in different people's work so that you get familiar with their work and the different tools and things that are out there, as well as realizing how all these different things integrate into compassion. And I will be highlighting also some different musical artists along the way. Some of you may have listened when I was doing the series of shows for Emergence into the New Dimension. And the last person that I had on in that series was Claire Hadeen. And she did some amazing music. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that show, I really recommend going back because her music is absolutely beautiful. So lots of different things that we do here. And I just want to kind of point out as well that remember when you're sharing your experiences that you're also helping others. So if you come and you ask questions on the show, you're helping other people learn and you're helping other people grow. And maybe even if they don't have that particular issue, then somebody they know might have that issue. So it's really useful when you do call in and answer questions. And that is an aspect that if you have any questions for our guest tonight or me, you can call in on our phone lines, and that's the number that you see it on the screen there. It's 760-542-4345, and you just press 1 to get into the call queue. So it's really easy to do, and then you'll pop up and it'll show me, hey, there's somebody that's got a question. Tonight, as I mentioned, I have on Sharón Lynn Wyeth, and we're going to be looking at names and their meanings and the insights that they can provide in our life. And I already went over how to call in. I'm going to be watching my chat screen as well. I see I have some new people jumping in here, and I'll be watching there. So you can also type your questions into chat, and I'll be paying attention there as well. So that makes it nice and easy for those of you that can't or don't want to call in. And just a reminder, if you enjoy the show, make certain that you're telling your friends, your family, share it with all your Facebook buddies out there, and anybody else that you feel inspired to share it with. They can always listen to it in the archives, and the archives are available as soon as the show's over, so it's really convenient to get to. They just come in on the same link that you use to get to the show. And another thing that they can do is also go to my Activating Compassion page, which is located at facebook.com/activatingcompassion/notes. And on there, they can find all of the archive shows, or you can find them if you've missed any of them. So that's a great way to do getting all of that information. So before I get started, what I like to do, as some of you know that have joined our show before, is tap into that book called The 72 Names of God by Yehuda Berg, and I like to just randomly find something in this book. I like Yehuda's work because it's put into everyday language, everyday terms, and it just kind of gives us a little insight or a little something that we have to share for our week and to focus on. And it's always amazing when we do these, and you can do this at home. You can take any book, and you can think of a question or think of something that you have going on, and then just open it right up and get an answer a lot of times, or get something that is applicable to what you're doing. So that's a big thing there. Now, I'm just going to kind of flip through here, and I'm going to kind of get a random page and see what our message is tonight. And tonight's message, I've got umbilical cord. Now, the message that goes with this says, when we experience moments of sadness, fits of anger, bouts of depression, or when we commit acts of intolerance or insensitivity, the divine radiance instantly withdraws, leaving us in spiritual darkness. Unfortunately, in the chaos of day-to-day life, the laundry list above is bound to occur. Now, whenever we commit a negative action, the light instantly leaves our presence. We're floundering in the dark. We may not detect this effect with our 5 senses, but we experience it internally and through the events of our lives. Our consciousness turns negative. Our state of mind becomes gloomy and pessimistic. Situations around us spiral into darkness. We know we need to leave this space fast, but we see no way out. We're alone, trapped at the bottom of the snake pit, and the snakes are closing in quickly. The good news is that there's a tool that can prevent us from completely severing the life-giving cord that connects us to the light. This divine name is the tool. Now, the meditation that Yehuda gives with this is, you establish an umbilical cord to the divine energy, ensuring a constant glimmer of light in your life, especially for those times when you wind up in a place of utter darkness. And the name that is for umbilical cord is pronounced Hey-Resh-Shet. Hey-Resh-Shet is that name. So that is the thing. And this is an important thing because you've heard me talk about this over and over again. One of our biggest blocks is that negative thinking. It's that negative concept that gets into our head and creeps in. And by keeping this connection to spirit, we can always reopen. We can always start to manifest the things that we want. We're never lost. We're never alone. And I think that this is a very appropriate message tonight because this time of year, a lot of people are dealing with depression. You know, they've gotten through the holidays, they've gotten past a lot of things, and now they're dealing with these kind of what we call or refer to as the winter blues. And here again, one of the best things that we can do to get out of negative spaces, as I've talked about and as I talk about in my book, is find something to give to or someone to give to or to share things with. Because when we start doing for others, and a lot of people have needs. A lot of people are in these spaces, so they have a need of somebody just cheering them up or going and saying hi to them or giving them a smile or whatever simple little thing like that. It could take just a few minutes or a few seconds out of your day, and it makes a huge difference. So that is our message from Yehuda tonight. Again, that is the message of umbilical cord, and the name that goes with that releases us from negativity is Hey Resh Shet. And I do see we've got some people jumping in the chat. And, Joseph, I recognize you there. It's great to have you here. I really appreciate that. So that's really wonderful. And as we move on here, I just want to talk a little bit about names. And names have played an important role in identity through most cultures and throughout time. They have often been used to bless people with certain virtues, talents, or characteristics. In times of old, names have played an important part in identifying where we have come from and showing our lineage. However, during times of migration, names were also changed, taking on the name of a new family, sometimes as a means to protect the identity of someone. So we see this a lot when people are going through those immigration times and those different times of our culture where we've had immigration going on. When people were migrating into different countries, they would change their names a lot of times, especially as they migrated into America. They would do that. So that's a big thing there. And the question really comes is just how important are names in who we are and how much effect do they have on us? While in many countries names are not changed when marrying, in America they are usually changed. Usually the woman is the one that's changing her name to the man's name. And, this brings up a great question. What about when we change due to marriage for one reason or another? Some people change because they've been adopted or they needed to take on a new identity for one reason or another. How does that affect our life and our relationships with others? What if you don't resonate with a name that's given to you? Or, again, what if you were adopted or have parents that remarry? How do you find a name that fits you and what you want? So many times people are changing their names, and then they find that perhaps a good relationship isn't working anymore, or that they maybe, in some cases, it's working better, which is great. And they find that maybe they were able to make things happen that were previously blocked for them. Names are more than a word that we're given to identify ourselves by. And we are going to be delving more into these very questions tonight. And I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break here, but I do want to acknowledge we've got some good people here in chat, and I've got a caller on the line, and I'm just going to go ahead and touch base with my caller here and see where they're at right at the moment. Okay, I've got a caller coming in from 646 area code, and you are live on the air. Hi.
How are you? Hi, Sharon. My name is Carmen.
This is Dusty. But go ahead.
Yes. And I wanted to know more information on my name as well as another person as well. Okay,
perfect. So we are going to be getting to this tonight. I haven't quite brought our guest on just yet. She is on her way on. She had a few delays with flights today. It's been a little rough for her getting into the destination that she was headed into. And so she's just coming on, and I'm just getting ready to take a break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to take a short break song, and then when we come back, Sharon's going to be on the line, and I will get you back on the line as well, caller, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so hang in there with us.
Will do.
All right, as I said, I'm going to be taking a short break here, and when I come back, we are going to have our guest tonight, who is Sharón Lynn Wyeth. And the song that I'm going to play here during this break comes from Claire Hedin, which was on our show again. She was on the last show in December, and this song is called Dia Harmonies.
Oh, dear, dear little light, shine forth thy beauty. You came, you went, 'twas brief and rare. We loved you and we love you. So thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you oh so deeply. And thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you for your visit. We know your time with us was brief, but still 'twas time well valued. You have a place in hearts and minds down here on earthly fallows. Your light will shine and dance you will upon the skies of spirit. We learn, we love, we touch, we part, we feel the circle's healing. So thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you oh so deeply. And thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you for your visit. Oh, dear, dear little light, shine forth thy beauty. You came, you went, 'twas brief and rare. We loved you and we love you. So thank you, yes, thank you, dear, sweet in spirit. And thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you for your visit.
Great, and welcome back for those of you that are just joining in with us. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and we were just listening to a song by Claire Hedin, who was a guest of ours a couple of weeks ago on the show, and that song was Dia Harmonies. If you'd like to explore more of Claire's work, you can go to her website at www.clairehedin.com. I'm going to type that into our chat as well so that they can see what I just put in there. It's CLAREHEDIN.com. So clairehedin.com, and you can check out the rest of her music right there. Now, again, if you'd like to speak with our guest tonight, you can dial in on our lines at 760-542-4345. We do have a caller in the queue, and I will be watching chat as well, so you can always type your questions in there. And now I'm going to bring on our guest. We have on tonight Sharón Lynn Wyeth. She's the creator of Neimology science, the study of the placement of letters in a name to divulge their personality characteristics. Wyeth's background includes majoring in mathematics at college and being both a college professor and school administrator. She has authored 2 books, the Amazon bestseller Know the Name, Know the Person, and her upcoming book, which is Know the Name, Know the Spirit. She is able to teach in 15 hours what took her 15 years to discover. And we're going to be exploring tonight the meaning of names and how that shows your gifts and challenges and where best to focus your energy. And you can also learn more about Sharón's work on her website, which is bestnamemeanings.com. That's right there in our show description, right under the show description for her. And I'm going to go ahead and bring her on tonight. Open up her mic. Sharón, I've got your mic opened up, and I want to say thank you so much for being here, because I know you've had an incredibly long day traveling and journeying and getting places.
It's just amazing, and it was really fun. I think I did just about everybody's name on that plane as we had our 8-hour delay. Thank you for waiting for me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You are worth the waiting for, and I've just had so many people going, yes, I'm so glad you have her on, and I'm so glad because I just love her work. So that's really, really exciting, and I'm just happy to have you here. So I'm happy to bump the show back a couple hours for you, no problem. Before I get to the caller that's in the queue, I want to start off with maybe just having you give a little background as far as, looking at what brought you here, what brought you into working with names, and, what was this journey that made you say, this is what I want to work on?
Well, it very simply, I was a school teacher, and I have my master's degree, and it's in math, and so my brain is very well trained in patterns. And, in fact, I find that I look for patterns in everything, and until I can figure out a pattern, the world doesn't make sense. And so I think that's just because of the way I'm wired. And if you know my whole birth name and you know Neimology science, now it's obviously apparent to me why. But anyway, I just look for patterns everywhere. And as I was doing the seating chart in getting ready for my 7th year of teaching, my brain started telling me, don't put Joshua next to Julie together. They're going to be clowns. Put Derek up close. He's going to need extra help. Put Stephanie in one seat on the side. She's never going to want to change her seat because she's going to be stubborn. And anyway, all kinds of things that once I get to know the kids, I put a lot of time and effort into doing a seating chart. And after a couple of classes, I thought, wait a minute, I don't know these kids. All I know is their name. And so I felt guilty at first. I thought, wow, I'm making, evaluations on kids before I know them. And then curiosity got the best of me. And so I said, okay, I'm going to write down everything that's coming to me. So obviously my brain's figured out something, everything that's coming, and see if it's accurate or not. So I wrote it down for all 150 kids I was teaching that year. And 3 months later, at winter break, when I read what I had written, I went, oh, my goodness gracious. So how do I make conscious what is unconscious? Now, we do unconscious things all the time. We drive, we breathe, we have our routines. We're not aware of everything we do because we put it on automatic pilot. And so my brain had just put looking at names and evaluating them on automatic pilot, but I want to know how you do it consciously. And it took me 15 years to figure out all the nuances. I started with literally trial and error. There was just a plethora of Davids in my life, so I made a column for each David, and I said I'm going to write down all the adjectives I can think of that when I've observed this David, that I've observed, and then the next David, and the next David, and the next David. And anyway, when I got done, anything that was in the column all the way across, I went, okay, that's got to land in the name David. And anything that's not the same, I've got middle names and last names. And so that's how I started. And there was a plethora of Susans in my life. And it's interesting how all of us will have a few names that we really resonate with. And so a lot of people come into our lives with that name. And then there's always a few names that we absolutely don't resonate with. And anytime somebody with that name comes in, we kind of get on edge or things don't go well for us. And so with Neimology science, I have found that it's very easy to look at a name and not take anything personally because you just go, oh, well, of course they're doing that. Look, it's right there in their name. And it's helped me figure out how to get along with everybody so that the ones that otherwise would have been tough for me, I've looked at the names now and said, that's why it's tough, and this is how I need to adapt if I want to get along. So there's so much purpose and reason in the names. And I've seen, like, marriages start to fall apart and people come in and we tweak. We don't change who they are. We just change how they present it a little bit, or how you can say what you want to say but just say it a little differently so that you're saying it in the other person's communication style. And it just smooths things out so that you're not pushing buttons. And, you know, it's joyful to get to see people's lives improve. And that's, when I started using it, that's what I started seeing, and so that's why it became a passion.
And, you know, and that's so amazing, because I think it makes such a big difference when we become aware of these things and we start to implement them. And I know for myself, doing astrology and numerology and looking at these different things, that it does. When you see those patterns, it's really hard to deny it after a certain amount of time. And I found it was interesting where you were talking about how certain names you just automatically have this resistance to. And it's true. I found that in my life. There are certain names I'm just completely resisting, and then other names that I'm just like, oh, okay, but that works fine for me.
Right. Those are comfort zone names, you know, versus names that push our buttons. And there's certain names out there that do such a good job of pushing everybody's button. And when I run across those, you know, I've started to look at them in a different light. And I thought, first, it's got to be really hard to be everybody's agitator, because it's harder for them to make friends. And yet, what a service they provide, because as we're trying to do our best and we're improving and we're really working on ourselves, and after a while you say, wow, I've really gotten where all these things don't push my buttons, and then you meet one of them. And you think, wow, I've got a whole new load of buttons to start working on. You know? So they serve such a fabulous purpose if you look at it and say, oh, yeah, that's what they're about, and it's not intentional. They're not trying to hurt you. It's just their service to the world.
You know, they're really great teachers, because what they do is they shine the light on our shadows and help us know where we need to grow.
Exactly.
And, you know, they really are this valuable lesson, even if they irritate us. We have to look at them kind of like that grain of sand that's creating the pearl and the oyster.
Oh, good comparison. Good comparison.
You know, I think that is definitely a big thing. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge my callers that are sitting there patiently waiting, and I'm going to ask them just to hang in there a little bit longer with us here, because I would like you to explain to our listeners what nameology is all about. I know you've kind of touched on that, and I think it's fabulous. I wish we had every teacher sitting there thinking, okay, if we could put these kids with those kids, they'd learn a lot better and they'd do a lot better, and I can bring out their better attributes by doing this. But, you know, really, what is nameology all about? You know, when you work with somebody, what do you do, and what do you look at, and what are these different things, first, middle, and last?
In front of me, it's like it's alive. That name just starts talking to you after a while, and you see all the patterns in it. But what nameology science is, it's the study of the placement of the letters in a name and how those letters interact with each other. So the first name tells us what ingredients we've been given for this lifetime, what gifts we've been given, what challenges we've been given. But I look at it as, if I'm going into my kitchen, I have all the ingredients that are in my kitchen when I start to make a meal. And that's what we're served in our first name. Our last name says, here's all the possible recipes you can make with these ingredients. Which ones are you going to choose? But you've got these ingredients and those recipes. And so you can pick and choose out of that, see what combinations you can make. The middle name tells us what we do under stress. And so the first name is the essence of who we are. Our middle name is who we morph into under stress, because some people go really shining and some people just kind of fall apart. So that's the middle name. And the last name is the influence of our environment. So you have both nature and nurture in a name. Now, what I found is really interesting is those people who have stronger middle names than first names, they become procrastinators because they want to put themselves under stress to get the very best out of them. And that's because the middle name is stronger. I've also found with different names that some people are here to lead, some people are here to kind of do their own thing but not lead or follow, and some people are here to follow or learn absolutely as much as they can from others. But we all have purposes. And my current research is the patterns in the name on the predispositions in health. Now, every placement of where the letter sits gives us information. And then the combinations of the letters also give us information. So it's like if two kids are sitting next to each other and they like each other, they behave one way. But if they're the same kids, if they're sitting next to people they don't like, they behave a different way. And the letters react the same. If they sit next to a letter that's compatible, you gain and you get more gifts. And if they're sitting next to a letter that they're not compatible with, you're given more challenges. And so when you take a name and you're dissecting it, you dissect the first name and then you drop it, for lack of better terminology, into the last name to say, how would the last name, the pressure from the last name, influence those ingredients that the person came in with on the first name? Because you could have two people with the same first name, and one person lands in a very nurturing family and goes in one direction, and one person lands in a very critical family or where there's critical disregard, and totally turn out differently. So how they use those ingredients is really indicated by the last name.
And that's just fascinating. It's just, like I said, it's just fascinating to me to to think how this all pieces together, and this, what you've created here for identifying these patterns and ways that they interact, and it's just a whole nother realm of knowing whether you're compatible with somebody or not with somebody. And I'm sure as you realize, too, when somebody changes their name, say, for example, for marriage, that they're going to shift that vibration or that connection somewhat.
Well, they change their environment because they change the last name, and the last name represents your environment. And it was really cute. The lady sitting across the aisle from me, after I'd done all the stewardesses, she says, "Oh, do my name." And I said, "Okay, well, tell me whether it's maiden or you're married, because it makes a difference, when you give the last name." And when she gave me her married last name, I just looked at her and I said, "Oh, bless your heart, your in-laws are just a problem for you." And I said, "Now, what's your husband's first name?" And she just started laughing, and she says, "They really are." And I said, "What's your husband's first name?" And she told me, and I said, they were a problem for him too, but he had to learn to adjust. Because what do you do as a kid? You adjust to the adults around you. I said, so ask him when things bothered you how he managed to adjust, and give yourself clues. Because he had to go through what you're now going through. But it was really nice because she and her husband had highly compatible names. So I thought, oh, good, that's a good marriage. They're very much, they understand each other. They're not alike, but they understand each other, and that's what counts.
Oh, that's amazing. I want to get to callers that we have in here and let them go ahead and ask you some questions as well. And I'm bringing on our caller 646 area code. You are live on the air.
Hi, good morning. Shalom, my name is Carmen, and I wanted to know what energy do you pick up from my name?
Okay. Do you spell it with a C or a K, Carmen?
With C.
Okay, and then I need at least the first initial of the last name.
V.
The first initial of the last name is an E, did you say?
V, like victory.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. First of all, when I'm looking at your name, you have a fabulous memory. And you remember anything you want to remember. If you don't care about something, then you don't care about remembering it. But you have this fabulous memory, and you just take it for granted. And when you miss something or don't remember it, you get on yourself, and yet you have no idea that your memory is so much better than people around you because you just figure that everybody's got what you've got. In your name, you have where you want the world to be fair. And you have a gift of really knowing how to work hard and making things happen when you want to. In fact, I'd call you quite a workaholic. And yet at the end of the day, you can be quite a couch potato when you want to be. Okay, I mean, once you're done, you're done. But you really work hard, and you work for the fairness and the equality of the people around you. And that is your greatest gift in your name. Your greatest challenge in your name is not to have other people control you. So your challenge is to learn how to stand up for yourself, have a voice for yourself, and learn how to be in charge where you're comfortable being in charge. So I'm sure that in your lifetime you've had plenty of times when you were in charge and other times when you weren't, so you got to observe those that were. And so you practice back and forth because that's how you learn how not to let other people control you. And that's your challenge.
Okay. My middle name is Ann, A-N-N. Is it stronger than the first, or
It's a very strong name, but it's very compatible. It's like equal with the first. Okay? And your middle name says that anything you're really interested in, it's like you have a photographic memory, and that just makes you want to make the world a better place all that much more. So your ideal jobs would be where you get to make a difference in the people whose lives are around you. So whether it would be in schools or in hospitals or in any kind of service, because you're all about making the world a better place and making it fair. And one of the talents that's in your name is to be able to see things from other people's points of view, even when you disagree with them. But you can see where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with your name, I'd hire you in a minute. You know,
really? Thank you. I am studying numerology, and I've been studying astrology. So when I saw the topic this evening, well, you know, this morning, I was like, okay, I'm going to log in and listen because I was very interested. I am interested, pardon me. But I have one more question. I am dating a Sean.
How do you spell Deshaun? Because there's lots of different ways.
S-H-A-U-N.
U-N. Interesting. Yes. So he's got a sense of humor, and he's got a little bit of play in him. And that's good because sometimes you get real serious, you know, and then your humor comes out actually when you're more under stress. But he's got a real sense of humor, and then his sense of humor can set off your sense of humor, okay? And so it's nice. It's like he's the key that warms you up on that. He needs a lot of freedom. So in his name, you have a lot of compatibility. Your conversation style is the same. Your communication style is the same. You're both mental people. That's the key for how you communicate. And you show your love through action and doing things for each other. And that's how you help each other, but that's how you show that you like each other. He needs his freedom. If you ever try to get controlling with him or to control him in any way, he's like a bird. He wants to fly away. So that's the only warning there, is that you've got to really watch that. You always give him choices and you never tell him what to do. You always ask.
And always ask.
Because there's resistance to being told.
And can I give you the initial of his last name? It's a C.
It's a C, which really amplifies what I just said. It means he's even more highly sensitive to being told than most would be with that name. Okay.
So she's kind of got a triple whammy there. She's got all that heavy-duty need for freedom, and then the last name accentuates that, and then the fact that it's a guy. And most need a little bit of space there to start with. She's kind of got that triple whammy on that energy.
But what's really cool about the name is that when you give them freedom, it's like a bird. You set them free, and they always turn around and fly home. It's only when they feel that you're going to put them in a cage do they not want to fly home. So as long as you can remember, when he has his freedom, he'll always fly home. You know, that makes it worth it.
This goes with a concept that I work with a lot that will be coming out in the book I do on relationships. And it's based on the idea that he wants to be there as opposed to feeling like he needs to be there or there's an obligation to be there. And he wants to be there by free will. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you're not trying to restrain him, he'll just kind of hang out there quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but Carmen, you're learning how to be in charge. So it's a challenge sometimes, because sometimes you're going to want to be in charge of him too. It's just going to come out because that's what you're about. That's what you're here to learn. So just know that you don't practice on him.
It's so funny. The reason I'm laughing is because he just told me this morning. This morning, he actually.
Yeah, and isn't it nice though? It's like, I know a lot of people go to marriage therapists or whatever, or when things aren't going well, they start looking outside the box for astrology, numerology, whatever. And I think they're all different modalities to give you the same thing or to give you similar things. And I love it when people come to me, because you don't have to waste time like with a marriage counselor, with both of you yak for the marriage counselor to figure out what's really going on, because you just look at the names and you go, oh, look, this is what's going on. You know, so that you can get down to the bottom right away. And but it's really nice, because when you're looking at two names, if the people are willing, you can always make it work.
That's true.
You know, we focus sometimes, at the beginning of a relationship, we focus on what we like. But as a relationship goes forward, we start to focus or put focus on those things that we don't like. And the things that we don't like are little irritants that after time seem to grow and become big irritants. And so when people come in and I'm looking at the names, I get to remind people why they fell in love and why they got together and what they really appreciated about each other, and then get to show them how, without changing who you are, but how you present something or how you say something. You can say the same thing, but it's how you say it can make all the difference in the world, and then you're not pushing each other's buttons. And really, it brings back people to focusing on what they like about each other.
That's so true. That's so true, because I was, I don't know, at a loss for words, because I was like, I'm not pushy. I mean, I am an earth sign, but anyhow, okay, this is the last part of the question. In my total name, in my totality, you know, my middle name, my first name, my middle name, my last name adds up to 9. My vowels add up to a 9, and my consonants add up to a 9.
Well, according to numerology, which deals with numbers, that would say that you're completing and finishing a lot of lifetimes all at once. But I don't do numerology. Okay.
Oh, okay.
When I was learning the patterns and everything else, everybody would say, God, you ought to get into this, and you ought to look at this, and you ought to look at this. And I said, no, I need to keep myself absolutely pure and not influenced by anything else. I need to do my own observation work. Since I completed the nameology, then when friends said, oh, what about this and what about that, then I go, okay, now I'm ready to listen, you know, because I was past being influenced by it. So I don't do anything with numbers, which is maybe weird because I'm in math, but I look at the patterns in the names itself, okay? And when I'm looking at the parts of the name that you shared with me, Carmen, you're really all about doing your best to make the world a better place for everybody around you. And it's learning how to use your power when you're doing that. You know, because you're carrying a lot of power. And do you want to use it aggressively? Do you want to use it assertively? Do you want to imply it? You know, it's how do you want to use that power? And that's what you're learning. And the challenge with that is when you're learning how to use power is people who want to learn how to use power need to be right. And so how badly do you want to be right? How easy is it for you to say, oh, oops, man, I really blew that one? You know, I mean, when I was a school administrator and people would blow things around me, and people in central office would get all upset, I'd take the blame every time. I'd say, okay, blame me. If you need to blame somebody, blame me now. Okay, good. Now, everybody feel better. Life goes on. Let's get going. You know, it's like it's not a big thing, but it's very hard for some people. And that's one of the challenges. But you have the other letters in your name that say, I can learn this. You know, and I would say that you're going to have it mastered by the time that piece, by the time you'd be in your early 40s, of the need to be right.
Okay.
So hopefully this helps you out a lot, Carmen. I got some other people that I do want to get to and give them a chance to come in tonight.
Thank you.
And I think this is great. I mean, the nameology here that Sharón has given you, I think provides a lot of insight. And doing numerology myself, the 9s are huge. As she says, you know, she is honing in that you've got a lot of things that you're completing, and you can be very mutable on one hand. So oftentimes you can be reflecting people quite a bit, but you're also somebody who's a great catalyst for change for people, as she was mentioning. So you do hold a lot of power, and harnessing that is going to be a great, great gift to the world.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.
You have a great evening.
Welcome. Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Sharón, I did have somebody type into chat here, and they're looking for some clarification. They're wondering if you use the whole name or just the first syllable.
I use the entire name because the first name gives me their essence, the middle name tells me under stress what they do, and the last name gives me their environment. So the more of a name I have, the clearer and the more precise I can be. In fact, when some people give me the whole name, like one of the stewardesses tonight on the plane, I was talking, I said, this is how you operate, this is how you do it. And she goes, oh, my God, you even named my kids, you know, what, when she was a child, what her nickname was. You know, but it's all there in the letters. So it's the more you give of the name, the more information you have. And the reason I like nameology so well is in astrology, which I love. I think it's a fabulous science. And I'm studying it right now because I just am fascinated by all the information there. But in astrology, I have to get somebody's cooperation. I have to know their date of birth, and I have to know the time of birth, and I have to know the place of birth to get an accurate read. And so I need their cooperation to get that information. In numerology, I still need to know their birthday. Okay? Mm-hmm. In handwriting analysis, I need to have them write me a sample. And I need it to be like normal and not like they're trying to do it perfect because it's going to be analyzed. You know, in face reading, I need to be able to see them and able to do that. But in name reading, the minute you hear a name, see a name, get a part of a name, you've already got information. You're already off and running. And everybody identifies themselves with their name. When you say, who are you? Or when you're first meeting somebody, what do you say? You say your name, as if your name says it all. And indeed it does if you know nameology.
And I think, too, this is so great because I know a lot of people along the way that have been adopted and things, and they don't have that birth information. They don't have a lot of this information that you need with the other tools. And so it's really useful for them to have something like this where they can start to uncover some of that process. Okay, the next person that I've got here is one of our people in chat, Sovereign Archer, and he's providing the name Richard Stephen B. And I don't know if you can see into our chat or if you're strictly on the phone, Sharón. Stephen is spelled Stephan. That's the middle name.
Thank you. Interesting spelling. Under stress, he doesn't quite fit in. He gets stubborn. He wants to do things differently. Anyway, that's under stress. With Richard's name, he's about family. He learns from family. Family is important. When we come to the earth plane, we get all of our lessons in one of three packages. It's either through health, it's through finances, or it's through relationships. If you look back on every problem you've ever had, it comes in one of those three packages. And the name tells us which package it comes in. And so with Richard, it not only comes in relationships, he decided to major in family. So family brings him the greatest joy, and family brings him the greatest challenges. And sometimes he just makes things harder than they are. And then with Richard, you got to watch, because he's a slow burn, but he's got a temper. So little things will bother him, and they'll build up and build up and build up, and he won't say anything, and suddenly he can explode. And everybody around goes, okay, what just happened? I missed it. Because they didn't see all the slow burns. Okay? And just so know that that is something to watch. As Richard gets older, he'll get that under control a little bit more, but he's got to really watch it. If he gets too much stress in one area of his life, then that'll start leaking into other areas where you wouldn't normally see the temper. He ought to be bright. He ought to be school smart. He should have learned a trait well. He's got the ability to make a good living, and he'll have that. He's going to have to be willing to work to do it, and I don't know if he will have that work ethic without the last name. He's got fairness issues. He's rebellious. He wants to do things the way he wants to do things. I happen to think that's a fabulous trait, maybe because I've got it in my name. But I think it's a fabulous trait because it doesn't have you believe and be gullible and take things hook, line, and sinker. It makes you question things, and it makes you go out there and look at things and see it for yourself. So I happen to like rebellious spirits. I've always liked that in my students. But he's got that big time. But he's smart. He's going to be outside the box. He's going to want to make the world a better place.
And he's giving confirmation 100% correct. Yes. 100% correct. I have another person in my chat here. Let's see here. Romelia is the first name, Romelia, middle initial O, last name Perez, Perec.
Oh, good. I get a whole name. Okay. Let me give the gifts and then the challenges. Okay, let me just name a few because there's so many to name. I literally can talk for a whole hour on any one name. So, on Romelia's name, she's really about learning about herself. And she does that through seeing her reflection through other people's eyes. So she's made herself very likable. And, of course, if somebody doesn't like her, she's not going to change who she is to get more liked. Okay? But she's made herself really likable because through somebody else's eyes reflecting back, she gets to know more about her. And this lifetime is really a study on who is she really. Okay? She's really got to watch as a challenge that other people are going to want to take from her things and emotions and time and her possessions and her will. They're going to want to take that from her when she doesn't want to give it. So she's got to be very, keep close at heart and know not to let anybody take from her what she does not want to give. And that's a really big challenge for her because she's got a huge heart. She's very nurturing. And so she knows how to love. She expects loyalty in return. She'd be able to take charge if she wanted to take charge. In fact, whatever her area is, she'd probably be very good at it.
I agree with that. I happen to know Romelia from some different chat conversations and postings and things that I've done, and it's so true. You know, she really would be very good at things, and she's got a humongous heart and a humongous amount of caring for people. So I can absolutely.
Yeah, and she's very independent. She can take care of herself. The real challenge is that she's got such a big heart that people want to take advantage of it.
Mhm. I think that does happen. You know, definitely does happen and does come through like that. I've got two people that are wanting to know about things, and one of the things I think I remember seeing is that you are able to help people focus in a little bit, and both of these people are wanting some focus and direction in their life, like types of careers, direction to go towards, and getting just some clarity of maybe where to focus their energy because they've got interests that are so diverse. The first person's name is Ralph Lamar. That's Lamar Turner.
Okay. When I'm looking at Ralph, it's interesting because he looks at the world differently than the people around him. He has very unique vision. And so he sees things so differently than others that he thinks outside the box. And so in able to be happy in a job, he's got to be in a job where he can think outside the box. Now, Ralph ought to be able to just fix whatever. If something breaks, he could fix it. So he could be a handyman. He could be a maintenance man. He could go in that particular direction if he wanted to. He also has the ability to see how to group things. So I know this is going to sound really strange, but in a grocery store, he'd be able to organize that whole store where everybody could get in and get out and find their stuff with a lot of ease. Okay? He would just be fabulous at something like that. Or it could be a hardware store and put both of his talents, both of those talents together. He's got to be like a fix-it man. I wouldn't be surprised with this name if he's an inventor or he tries to do things differently than how they've been done before. Okay? So anything that gives him the right to discovery would be very good for him. His challenge in his here is that he has a hard time seeing his own flaws. It's not that we all have flaws or what I call challenges, but he has a hard time seeing his. It's almost like somebody else has to tell him his. And that sometimes can get in his way because he doesn't see the pieces that he's missing and able to put something totally together. So it's an easy thing to fix. Because what you do is when you think, okay, I have this great idea, you've got to pull in somebody that you trust that's also a thinker, because he's a thinker, to say, what did I miss? And they'll be able to spot the one piece real easily, and they can go, oh, yeah. It's an interesting name because he's so creative. He has a good sense of self. And the other thing he's very good at, which is totally different from anything else I've said, when you look at the number of what I call spiritual letters in his name, that if he wanted to go in the direction of clergy, he'd be very good at it.
Okay, so here's an interesting confirmation for you. He works with Habitat for Humanity part of the time. He's a college professor, and he has gone to theology school.
Well, he's got it. The religion is in there, and helping people. And do you mind if I ask what he teaches at college?
He's in the education department, so he's in library sciences.
Oh, organizing like stores.
Yes, organizing.
Like those stores where everything goes and people can come in quickly and get what they need and get out.
That's right. He tries to.
And in education, he's teaching other people how to think outside the box. So
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's a very outside of the box thinker, and so trying to focus in, on which direction to go with things. That's always, I think, a challenge when you have so many diverse interests there.
Well, you can do something for a while, and then you can change and do something else for a while. The great glory of our culture is that you're not stuck in one profession for your entire life.
Exactly. I think that's very, very true.
For all of your listeners out there, where I get that he thinks outside the box, that comes in the PH. So the people that they know, or if they have a PH in their name, look at Oprah. People with a PH. I look at Dr. Phil. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are really thinking differently, and a lot of them have that PH. pH is one of the combinations. There's always at least 3 combinations that'll give you the same characteristic or trait, but coming at it from a different angle. And the pH is the think outside the box. It's one of the 3.
Awesome. Cool. Second person that asked me, and they weren't able to be on live because they're sleeping and they have an early morning start, is our show's producer, Daniel Michael. Middle name's Nolan. Daniel Nolan Michael. I better know that.
Oh, Michael's the last name. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So he was taught, and he ought to have a fabulous ego or sense of self. Okay? To really have a sense of who he is. He is about making the world a better place. He's highly independent. He's connected with Source. God would be very important to him. When he's under stress, he wants to make sure everybody's okay. When he's not under stress, he wants the world to be a better place, but he's not going to go around and make sure that necessarily everybody's okay, because he's all about get the work done first and then we'll work about the rest, okay? Because he's really driven by work. He's an investigator. He would want to know where the truth lies. He would want to go after things and check the facts and see if it's true for him as well as true for whomever it was that told him. You know, I call that actually detective work or investigation work. He would also look at things in a way that he's got to connect everything to spirit in some form or another, so that everything has to tie back into his spiritual beliefs. I would not call him religious. I would call him highly spiritual. He has a tendency, or he's been taught, so he's picked it up from others. It's not native to himself, but he's picked it up from his environment, where sometimes he makes things harder than they have to be. Okay? He's going to be responsible and look out for family because he's been taught that, hey, that's part of what being a member of a family is, and he would have bought into that. At the same time, he would be very stressed or challenged at times by family, where that really makes him go into himself and have to reassess himself and pull out the best because he wants to say no, and then he's going to have to rethink things. But under stress, he comes to the rescue. You know, it's like if there's a hardship or whatever, he would be the one to come to the rescue and be there if he could. He'd be very dependable.
I agree. I think you're on target with that, because he's a very, very spiritual person, and he very, very much wants to get to the truth of things and learn things, and so I think that's very, very much there. So career-wise, if he was really going to focus in, because he's got all these different interests, what would be like his key areas to focus in?
The one thing he's got to be careful of, and he may be totally unconscious when he does it, the one thing he would have to be careful of in his name is not to come across as arrogant. Okay? And so, as good as he can be with people, he needs to have a job where he's not always with people, because that's when sometimes that arrogance could come out, when he's just not aware, because he's just self-confident. Okay? When I'm looking at his name for a job, give me a second. It's really interesting. He'd be really good in the health field, in health careers.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd actually be a fabulous nurse. And I don't know if his interests lie there, but he'd make a fabulous nurse, because he would be able to look at what's wrong and figure out right away how to make it better. You know, and he's got a way where he can make people feel comfortable around him. Okay?
And
he'd
he
be
does.
Very good.
Yeah, he does. He does make people feel very comfortable around him, and he's very good at figuring those things out, a more efficient way to do something, or
exactly. So the nurses do that. He'd be excellent also as a hospice worker. He'd be very good working with kids on a short time basis. Okay, like you go to a special camp and you're with him for 2 weeks, and then he gets to get rid of them. But he'd also, though, make a very good lawyer.
That'd be interesting. I don't know. He definitely is a good debater on things. Like, he can definitely bring up a lot of good points on things. So that's very interesting.
But the other thing is, on the other side of that, he'd make a wonderful mediator for the courtroom.
Uh-huh.
Because he can see all the different sides and he can think fast.
That's true. He can definitely be there and be on it. And he's always thinking about, what should I have done more or different or things like that, too.
Right. Because he's very observant, and he sees so much that he really gets on himself when he misses something. It's like he doesn't say, look, I got 96% of what was out there. He goes, how did I ever miss that 4%? And then that bothers him.
Yep. That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, I'd say explore in any of those directions. See where his interest is, and then go try it out.
Okay. I've got somebody else in chat here, and the name that they're giving me is Joseph Wayne Williamson.
Oh, I love it when I get the full name.
PH, so another one of those PH names. And then Williamson, WILLIAMSON.
So Joseph could be in politics. He's going to think outside the box, but he's going to have, his big thing is to learn how to follow his own lead. He is not to follow anybody else. He can discuss things with other people, he can get ideas from other people, but he's not a follower. He really came to be the one that takes the path less taken and cuts down the pathway so everybody else can follow. Because now it's a nice pathway instead of rubbish out there that everybody would have to crawl over. He's really here to learn how to follow his own pathway. He's got to be a little bit careful because sometimes somebody will say something that so intrigues him that it takes him off the path, and then he can turn around after a while and come back on the path. But it's not a waste of time. It's just a divergent way of traveling. But he's really here to explore new concepts and share those concepts, especially the spiritual ones, and to look at different religions that are out there and say, what do they have in common? What did they really mean when they said this? What was it culturally? How do I put it back into that time frame? And how can we use that knowledge today? How does it apply? And how do we get people to understand that knowledge so that we don't keep making the same mistake over again? He would be very good in history. He would be very good at putting divergent fractions together. Like if he had two different cultures clashing to figure out a way how they could live together and make peace. Okay? But he's really, it's like his whole name says ancient scholar in the spiritual realms. That he's carrying a lot of wisdom, and how does he get that out, and how does he share it?
And I think that's pretty true. I haven't gotten a confirmation yet just from him on everything, but I think that's pretty on target with him. Now, Sharón, what about somebody like yourself or like my friend Ralph who has titles such as doctor or they're, so-and-so the third, things like that. How would that play into when you're looking at people?
I have a whole chapter of that in my book.
Yay!
and when I was traveling and testing it around in different places in the country and getting to talk on it, I mean, I remember being in Germany and people showed me the numbers on their arms and said, what about this when I had to go by this number? You know, what does that mean versus my name? You know, and anyway, the whole chapter goes through all of that. And then I have another chapter in the book that when I was talking everywhere, if there was a question that didn't quite fall exactly into a nice category, like the first letter in the name or the first vowel in the name or the last letter in the name type of thing, but it was important to know, I made a what-if chapter. And all those questions people asked me as I was traveling around and talking, I would put it in the what-if chapter. And so when people include a profession with the name, you read the letters of the profession the same way you would read the letters of the name. And you read it like if it's a doctor and then the last name, you read the doctor as if it was the first name, because that's how they are going to appear to their patients or their students or, you know, the people around them. And you read it almost like a nickname, because a nickname is a name that people use. It's not on our birth certificate. And what that does is it says, these are the qualities or the characteristics that I am showing the person that is calling me by this name, but it's not all of who I am. It is a role or a facade or part of who I am, and that's what I'm showing.
So let's give people an example. Let's go back to my friend, Ralph Lamar Turner. He's got that title of doctor. How would that change anything or shift anything or play into that name?
Yes. When he's going by just Dr. Turner, okay?
Okay.
It means that they're looking at him to stand up for them. They're looking at him to connect them to a better part of themselves, to be nurtured by him, to be taken care of by him. They expect him to be in charge. They expect him to take control of a situation. They expect him to have good hand-eye coordination. They expect him to have his sense of humor right up front so they can see it right away. And they trust him to make good decisions, and yet they're not going to see the fallacy sometimes in the decisions. Okay? We can never follow anybody 100%, because if not, you follow the flaws along with the good stuff. Okay, and then you don't have your own discernment. And so he would then come across where he's going to present, when he's called Dr. Turner, both the challenges and the gifts, and yet because of the letters in the word doctor, the students are going to find a harder time to see the challenges or where he may be off. And it's not off for him, but it would be off for them. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. So that's great. I think that's a good way to, you know, I wanted people to kind of have that example of how it played in there.
And
you know,
if you knew what the different suffixes were, Junior is a long one to go through, but I would never name somebody Junior. You know,
okay, so why not?
Or skip it and name it third, or it puts such challenges on the person, and it's so easy for that person then to take the challenges instead of the gifts, because the name Junior is loaded with challenges and very few gifts, where most names are balanced in the gifts and the challenges. And a lot of people will say, well, what's a good name? And I'll say a good name is one that has the gifts that know how to handle the challenges that are in the name, because that way you grow and you progress. And every once in a while I've been given a name and I think, oh, my gosh, this name is so difficult. You know, this person came down, it looks like with all karma and very little dharma. And, you know, it's just a very challenging life. And some very advanced souls will do that just to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff all at once. You know, but the name Junior adds challenges and doesn't correspond with the gifts. So I wouldn't do that to somebody. Why make their life harder?
Right, exactly. And that's true. And I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. I think people aren't thinking about some of those things. They're just thinking, well, I'm having the name carried on. And
right. So call him the second.
Call him the second as opposed to junior. So that's good advice there. And so you brought up an interesting point. Maybe you can touch on a little bit more. Like when somebody changes their name and then it can just completely clear a whole bunch of karma for them?
I really believe that we deal with what our birth name is. It may change how they deal with it, but that underlying piece sits in the birth name. And how you go about, like if you change your name, you alter your name, you go by a nickname, you're changing how you're going about that learning that you have in your birth name, but you're not changing your original script. You're just changing how you play it.
Okay, so that's interesting. Now,
so for an example, to make that one really clear, it would be like, let's say you were supposed to learn 2 languages. So instead of learning English and Spanish, you now learn French and German. You're still learning 2 languages. You're just changing part of the script, but you've still got to complete the task.
Okay. So, okay. That helps. That helps to clarify things for people, and I think kind of settle. I'm trying to, pinpoint some of those questions that I think people would have. What about this part? I'm trying to touch on some of your what-ifs in there.
Sure.
So here's another what-if. What if somebody does not resonate with the name that's given to them? For example, maybe there's...
it happens. It happens. I mean, I deal with a lot of people that call me and say, I don't like my name. So I go through what their name says about them and the gifts. And when I look at the parent's name and then their name, I can say, and this is probably why you got this name. And some people will say, oh, well, now I like my name better. Now this is what it means. And other people go, oh, now I really want to get rid of my name. And I look at it that when we were in the spirit world and we projected onto and impressed the person who was going to be naming us what we wanted to be called, we actually named ourselves. And when we had greater vision before we came into physical form, we knew that name would provide for us a script for this lifetime that we wanted to accomplish. And when we don't like it, it's like saying, I want a chocolate cake, but I want to have 1 layer vanilla, and then I want to have pineapple in it. And when you get served a chocolate cake with 1 layer vanilla and pineapple, and you go, ooh, these flavors are awful together, you go, well, send it back. I want something else. It's like you get down here and you go, oh, I'm not sure I want that anymore. Now I want to change my mind. Okay? And as long as you're aware that the tasks are assigned, and they're assigned by the birth name, that you can change a name and alter or make it easier or give yourself some more help while you're going about that when you start to go by a different name, but your tasks don't change. And it's your rebellion of, yeah, I gave it to me, but I don't want to take responsibility for it, so now I want to go do something else because the neighbor's grass is greener over there, so I think I want a different name.
Okay. So we're always, what you're saying is we're always going to have those foundations there by the name that we're born under, no matter whether we change our name legally or we just start using a nickname or something like that.
When you change your name legally, it really impacts the person. And it's like saying, I don't like my contract with God, I want to rewrite it.
Interesting.
And so just like some people that are very good at helping people rewrite their contracts with God, it is a form of rewriting your contract for this lifetime. And I've seen great changes in people when they've done it legally, and it's, they go in a different direction and different things start coming up for them. And I'm not sure how that impacts us, whether that means that what we don't accomplish in our birth name carries over and we've got to come back and do it again, or whether we can do it a different way in the spirit world. I don't know how that impacts us from the initial spiritual perspective, why we start off with that name. But I do know it's like rewriting a contract with God, and I've seen great changes in people's lives once they do it legally.
I think that's true, because I find that with numerology and astrology and things like that to a certain extent there's always a little bit of those undertones of what you're born with, but then it does really shift the person quite a bit, just like marrying and taking on a different last name and changing that name legally, or changing a child's name legally when they're adopted, or things like that. And I've had some people say, well, you've got to live with it for 7 years before you start seeing the actual influences, before
and I would say it's like the sands of time. When they have an hourglass and the sands drop through, it's not suddenly 7 years later and flip and there you've got it all.
Right.
It's more like the sands of time that are slowly coming through, and you get a little piece more every day.
That's
so
very true, and it is. It's a little piece more every day, and I think that's
right.
I think that's a big thing. And I know with numerology and some of these other things, looking at street names and looking at house numbers and cities and things like that, and all these different things that can play in there. And I'm sure that's true if we were looking at, our street names of where we're living, or our city name of where we're living, that could have some kind of impact on us as well.
It does. And there's a chapter in the book where I say how to apply this out to businesses. And I give you comparisons like between Coke and Pepsi Cola. And I was giving us, that's one of the examples in the book. But I do a lot of different brand names and what that name is really saying on a subconscious level that's hitting all of us. Because I really feel that subconsciously we know this. Okay, what I did was simply bring it into our conscious awareness. And anyway, I was giving a demonstration at one of the workshops I was giving, and unknown to me, because I don't know what people's professions are when they come, I had a lady in there that had worked for both Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola. And when I went through the main differences, with Coca-Cola being much more controlled and tight and expecting, and Pepsi-Cola being a lot more fun and loose and still getting the job done, that's a short version of it. But I really went into detail on describing the atmospheres that the names say. This lady came up to me afterwards and said, I have worked at both, and it's right on. And I thought, when you're applying for a job, you may decide what kind of an environment do I want to work for, and then start eliminating companies you don't want to work for because of their name, or companies you would like to work for because of their name. And say, hey, these guys have a structure that I'm just not going to jive with. And it's just like I could never be in the military. I could never have something that's that rigid. It would drive me nuts. I'm too creative of a person, and yet I'm structured. And so, when I'm looking at companies' names, because we've moved frequently, I look at what's the name of the school districts. Where would I be the happiest? Where could I do the most good and at the same time feel good about doing it?
Mhm. And it would be amazing to me to think about, imagine if we all looked at these company names, and company names looked at people's names to get the right fit and the right blend of people. And, looking at that when we're considering different things, how much smoother things could run and how much more successful a lot of places could be as a result of that.
Right, because you keep your employees longer, and you'd want to stay at a company longer.
And you fit into that dynamic. as opposed to trying to fit
and then
into
there's not as much turnover. Everybody wins. But I pick my dentist that way. I've picked my doctors that way, and my massage therapist that way. It has greatly affected whom I choose to date. Sometimes people will ask me out, and I'll say, and I'll look at them and I'll go, I like you just fine as a friend. It wouldn't work as anything else, and I don't want to waste either one of our times.
I've done that in my past as well. It was a great way to weed out people, when I had a huge amount of contenders at one point. It was a great way to weed people down and to kind of say, okay, this is who I'll be compatible with and who I won't be. And it was pretty, it was a great asset at that time.
And I think there's times when the timing is right that we consciously or unconsciously put out pheromones. And I know I was joking with a friend the other day. I said, boy, in the last year, the men are falling out of trees. And what they don't understand is I only want the ones that know how to land on their feet. It's just joking, but there's different times within a name where it will show when that's coming up, when that timing is coming up.
Yeah.
Or when big changes are coming up, or when legal affairs are coming up. And so when you learn how to read a name, it helps you navigate through the structure or the construct of time so that you can take advantage of certain things and be aware that other things might be hitting you so they don't come out of the blue.
And these are such valuable things. And I just want to kind of get in here too, Sharón, that people that have been listening here tonight, and there's so much interesting information that you've been giving, and I just want to make sure that they know where to find your work, and that is at bestnamemeanings.com. And you can connect with Sharón there.
At bestnamemeanings.com, it's 70 pages of just information all about names, and you can play and have fun and read about names. At knowthename.com, you could hear interviews. You can. It's all about the book. It's a smaller, it's very concise website. It's for somebody that says, I just want the basic information as quick as possible, because in Best Name Meetings you can get lost in there. There's so much on the website.
Mhm. So and these are great, and it's fun to go in there and play and see these different things.
I set up something special for your readers.
Oh,
if they
great.
go to knowthename.com/first-chapter. So knowthename.com, and it's know is KNOW. knowthename.com/first, and then a dash, and then chapter. They can read the first chapter of the book absolutely for free.
There you go. What a great gift. What a great way to get some of that information and know it, and as well as playing around on bestnames.com. That's another great way to go. It does look like I have another caller that has jumped into our queue, so I'm going to go ahead and bring them on, see what their questions are here. This caller is calling in from 718 area code. You are live on the air.
Hi. This is very intriguing. I don't know much about this. Was it Neimology but I don't know if you could perhaps do my name. Do you think perhaps, or? But I actually changed my name. I actually changed my name, so I don't know if that would matter. The name I was given at birth is not the name that I have now.
Okay, what name were you given at birth?
James Wesley Cooper.
Okay, and what's your name now?
Salahuddin Abdul Adil.
Okay, you're going to need to spell that one for me.
Sure. First name is Salahudeen. That's the first name, and the last name is hyphenated. Abdul Abdul capital Adl. Salahuddin Abdul Adil.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let me talk about the changes that you gave yourself. How does that sound?
Please.
Okay?
Yes.
In your birth name, you could have felt smothered, okay? And where you didn't have a sense of worth or a sense of self, or you didn't know your own value, and that you could have been smothered. I wouldn't have been surprised if you would have gotten asthma or gotten the flu a lot, okay? And you were being taught how to rescue others, but there was a lot of questions on your part on what was true and what wasn't true, or were you being led down the wrong path? And so you had a lot of questions, and you just weren't sure of who you were. And so when you changed your name, you said, I'm still not sure who I am, because you have a second combination that means that exact same thing comes at it from a different angle. But this time you said, I'm going to put it into the hands of God. Because with your new name, you have all kinds of spirituality, all kinds of connections with spirit. You've changed your focus. It's all about spirituality. It's about religion and structure. It's about knowing the depth of who you are, or at least exploring that, not necessarily finding all the answers you want, but you gave yourself permission to really explore it and to know God on a different level. You also gave yourself intuition with your new name, the ability to see things from your inner eye that you didn't have before. So your intuition would be developing, and it would keep developing. So after a while, people will say, are you psychic? And you're going to say, I'm really intuitive. I just kind of know stuff sometimes. Okay? Also, what I find interesting is in your birth name, you had a sense of humor, but it was quieter. In this new name, when you get going, you can be rambunctious. You can get everybody laughing around you. You really gave yourself an incredible sense of humor with the new name, along with this drive to really understand a religious path and a spiritual path and how you are connected to God and how you fit into the spiritual realm of things.
Well, really, this is a great analysis, and I thank you so much for that feedback. And I just want to say, I don't know if anybody knows, I don't know much about Neimology, but I know a bit about transpersonal psychology, and I know that there are handwriting analysis. So I wouldn't even consider this to be so much metaphysical as just, I think that words do have meaning linguistically and such, and I think that there has what you just told me really has a lot of is more concrete than I don't know if maybe some skeptics would think. I know that you're not like looking into a crystal ball.
No, it's a pattern.
Science.
So it's really interesting because a lot of people will ask me if I'm psychic, and I don't answer that because this is something that everybody can learn.
Yes.
It's just patterns. It's recognizing what patterns mean what. And there's some memorization involved, or what I call my little cheat sheets when people come and take classes, so that you can learn it faster. But there's a whole new chapter in the third edition of the book that came out recently. There's a whole chapter on mnemonic devices. How do I get this in my head so it can stick?
Memory, yes.
How am I going to face it? And it's, my school teacher is coming out that says, okay, look, this is how you can look at this a little differently, and you can give yourself mnemonic devices to get it to stick. For an example, the letter B in the first letter position stands for bigger, better, best. Those all start with B, and those people are highly competitive because they want to be bigger, they want to be better, they want to be the best at what they do. And the letter C in the first letter position, I put down, stands for charming and charismatic to cover their need to be in charge and in control. But look at all the letter C's for the adjectives that I got for the letter C. And I've done that through the alphabet so that hopefully there's a jingle or a rhyme or there's a lot of the same letters and adjectives to help you get the essence of what you've read, the paragraphs about a particular letter, and get it down to something that you just key it in and you get the whole picture.
Well, I want to ask you too, considering I've chosen a new name. Is there a vestige of the old name? Would you say that's still a part of me, being that I had that name for? I'm 50 now, and I've had this other name for 20 years, and sometimes I still use it because I haven't changed it legally.
Did you change it, or did you just change it?
Well, I didn't know. It's been about 20 years I've been using the name. I haven't changed it legally. So, but
okay.
When I work, I had the ID in my new name, but I hadn't changed it in terms of certain documents. I still use that old name.
Well, until it's changed legally, there will always be an undercurrent of the birth name.
Yes. It's like I haven't really completely crossed over into the new identity, so to speak.
Right. But I think it's fascinating because the JA from the old name and the SA from the new name, when those are the first letter combinations of a name, it means that you're unsure of who you are. And look, you had it in the old name and you gave it to yourself again in the new name. You know, I find stuff like that fascinating because subconsciously you're saying, okay, I'm still not sure.
Well, that's not necessarily a negative, right? I mean, in terms of
it's
being
not
evolving.
negative. It's just
yes.
It lets you know that you're on a path this lifetime to search and find out who am I really and who do I want to be, and do I know my own self-worth and value, or is it hard for me to hear a compliment because I'm not sure they're telling me the truth?
Interesting.
You know, but you didn't change that part. You know, and that's a biggie. That's the umbrella underneath your birth name, and it's the umbrella underneath your new name. You're just going about figuring it out differently. You're taking a different pathway to do it. The first pathway would have been through discernment, and the second pathway is through religion and spirituality. But the mission's the same.
Interesting.
Okay, great. I want to thank you for calling in. And, Sharón, we do have another caller waiting to speak with you. And,
you're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to go to a caller that's in 410 area code, and this will probably be our last caller of the night. And 410, you are on the air.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm wondering if you can tell me what my name says about me career-wise. I know what I want to do, but I'm wondering if you can tell me what I'm meant to do, if I'm on the right path.
Okay. So Sharón will take a look at that for you. And what she's doing is she's working with names. So if you can speak up a little bit so we can hear you a little bit better. And she'll use your name to help you find out about career path for you.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's so late where I am. There's other people in my house. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's perfect where you're at there. Yeah.
My first name is Maria. Do you need my middle name?
Yeah, if you...
Okay, my middle name is Catherine, Catherine. And my last name?
At least the first letter, if not the whole name.
Do you want the whole name? It's kind of...
It gives me more information, but I need at least the first letter.
Okay, the last name is it's okay. It's Kokkinis.
Okay. So, Maria, you self-sacrifice for the good of the whole. All the time. It's like, when does it get to be your turn? You're always giving. You're always doing for everybody else. And then you'll do and give and give and give and give. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now it's my turn and I'm going to take. And it doesn't last long. It lasts like a blip on the bleep of the scale, and you're back to giving. You self-sacrifice for the good of the whole. You have a name that is in a totally giving profession, like a nurse that really serves people that are incredibly sick or children that are incredibly sick. You would be really good doing reflexology or something, physical therapy, where your giving and your talent, or your massaging and your talent helps somebody feel better. Okay? And the very other thing that I think is really interesting in your name, you'd be equally good as a hairdresser, where somebody dumps all their crap and all their stories and all their pain while you're working on their hair, and then you can give them advice that comes from absolute unconditional love, and they leave feeling, 1,000 times better. So something like that, where they can come and just talk and dump. And you've got this incredible ability to transform the energies around you into something that's positive. Your largest challenge is not to self-sacrifice so that you forget who you are about taking care of you, because you'll have a sense of self, but it's sometimes it's like you're so tired at the end of the day from taking care of everybody else that you don't have enough energy left to take care of you. You'd also be very good with animals. Your name says you could literally nurture animals back to health because of the love and the care and the attention that you would give them. So anything that is allowing people to express themselves, whether it's even an art class, because you would have artistic talents with your name, an art class for kids where they all get to talk about their problems while they're working on their art project. And then you can just say a few words here and a few words there, and they all feel great when they leave. Any of those things, as long as you remember to also take care of you.
I'm a visual person, creative-wise, and I've gotten away from that in my career, and I wanted to go back to that. I'd also like to write, and I that's what I did before. I worked in production, photography. I'd like to write. Is that part of my path?
Jessie, can you summarize that for me? I had a hard time hearing her.
Oh,
I did too. I had a little hard time.
I used to work. I did photography, production. I'd like to go back to that, and I also would like to write. So I'm wondering if any of that is in my path.
So she's wondering about whether
Writing.
photography or writing would be in her path. She used to do photography.
I'm looking. It looks, I don't see writing so much, just because you couldn't earn a living with it. It's like it doesn't matter how good you are. It's not, you don't have any money letters next to writing in your name. And you could do photography as a hobby.
Oh.
Again, it doesn't look like you'd be able to quite support yourself with it, but it could be a hobby that could bring in some cash, but it's not, again, it's like in hobby placement in your name, and it's not in where it would make enough money to support you. Does that help?
It does, but that's my passion. I don't want to.
Do you want something? I say do your passion, but if it doesn't support you, do something that does support you so then you can afford your passion. It's like I'm still in the classroom. I'm a math teacher, and I love teaching my students. And nameology and getting this out there is my passion. But teaching is what supports me.
So, it sounds like a new concept to me. Does that mean that no matter what, you can't surpass that limitation? It's just not meant to be.
There's a belief out there in the New Age world that if you just do your passion will take care of you. I have not found that to be true. I'm a very practical person. I have watched a lot of people go after their passion and then run through their savings and never gotten their passion to where it can support them. So I look at it and say, if your passion doesn't support you for whatever reason, then it was meant to be that you were also doing something else So do what brings in the finances so that you're responsible and can support yourself and that you're contributing back to society in the way God wanted us to. And then at the same time, do your passion as your hobby, and that way you get the best of both worlds. You know, you don't get worried about finances, and at the same time you get to enjoy your passion.
Right, makes sense. Interesting. Wow. So if I were to have a private reading with you, would you be able to more narrow down what it is I should be doing? Because I don't know anything other than what I'd like to do.
There's no should. If somebody says, oh, you should be this or that, what they're doing is relaying guilt to you. Because now if you do it and you don't like it, you're going to blame them. If you do it and it doesn't work for you, you're going to blame them again. And it's going to hurt the relationship. On the other hand, if you do it and you work, then you're angry at you because you did it because you should. And it's like it doesn't even sound good to be should on. You know, it's one of the 6 words that I think ought to be dropped from our vocabulary.
I would love to agree with that. And Sharón, we're winding down here. We have just we're down to kind of the last few minutes here into the show. And I want to thank our caller for calling in, but I also want to wrap up with that caller in the sense of sometimes if you know what your skill sets are that can earn you money, there are sometimes ways you can find a way to combine that with your passion or to be somewhere in that industry and still be able to make money. So it's a matter of sometimes learning to say, this is what I love, this is where my skill set is that's going to make money. How do I blend those two?
And I think if you're doing the skill set that makes you money and you're spending time doing your passion, eventually they'll swap.
They'll merge, yeah, or swap.
You'll end up doing less and less of as you build the other one.
So,
that's a very good point. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for calling in tonight. And Sharón, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and giving us your time in these early morning, late night hours here. And just to remind people again that they can connect with you, they can go on to bestnamemeanings.com, and that's got some fun stuff on it. You also mentioned that they can go to knowthename.com/first-chapter, and you've set it up so that our listeners can get that first chapter for free of your book, and we really, really appreciate that. So thank you again so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jessie, and thank you again for your patience while we were all waiting on the airline.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. I'm just glad you could make it in. And I just want to go ahead and start to wrap up here tonight and just remind people that as a listener, either live or in the archives of Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, through the end of this month, I am offering 90% off on all coaching services during the month of January, and as long as you're signed up by the 31st. So as long as you contact me and say, I want to start and I want to take advantage of coaching services, then we can do that, and I will set that up for you. And that includes the 1-hour sessions, and it includes the unlimited monthly sessions on that. So that's a really big thing. And also you can get a free copy of the e-book version of my books through the end of this month. So as long as you contact me by the 31st of this month, I will be happy to gift you out a copy of both Activating Compassion and Activating Compassion, the workbook. And the reason I'm doing this and I'm making these offers available right now, because they're not going to remain available for very long, is because I want to help you make the accomplishments, meet the goals that you have for this year, and make the changes that you want to make in your life. I find that to be very, very important. So my email is at the bottom of the show description. It is lifeofbliss@q.com. So just email me and say, I want to receive those free email books. And I want to remind you that we've got a few shows here on Main Street Universe throughout the week. Wednesdays, it's actually moved more to the evening hours. Daniel is on. We've got Kevin Baird with his Horizon Oracle Journeys. They're on Monday nights. And so we are shifting and adding some new shows along the way as well. This is Jessie Ann Nichols George. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you back here next week as we delve more into activating compassion. Don't forget that if you've enjoyed my show this evening, share it with others. It'll be available at the same link in our archives. I'm going to leave you tonight with the song Yearning For, also known as Over and Over by Shemshai. Thank you so much.
I could see what makes me blind, I would soar to the edge of my mind, and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. Oh, deep inside, the light within, shining to show you it's here to begin. When all I have is all I need, I will soar to the edge of eternity. And we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets that you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart still yearning for. Yearning for. Within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune of life in the circle and love in bloom. Turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart still yearning for all the